everybody. Nice to see some familiar faces, and welcome also to those who are joining us for the first time. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Sandro De Bono. I'm a museum thinker and culture strategist with a background in art history and curatorial practice. I'm based at the University of Malta, and I'm a keen museum professional, very active, very committed. I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of We Are Museums for our series of meetups. Great. So welcome everybody once again. We're spread all over the globe, which is amazing. This is all about what we stand for at We Are Museums. Before I introduce the series of meetups that we shall be having starting from today, I'd like to tell you a story. It's because we are all here because someone actually tweeted something, and I would like to share the tweet. This is how our meetup came to happen. Kaisa Hartig, way back in December, actually asked for help. And as We Are Museums, obviously, we were most keen to react. And a few months later, here we are. People spread all over the globe having some good conversations, hopefully, on this topic. And the series of meetups will bring digital into the conversation through multiple perspectives. We've been discussing this with Lauren, who is our partner from One by One. She will be telling us more about One by One, and Kaisa, who is from the Västernorrlands Museum. Did I get it right? Okay, it seems I did get it right. So we'll be exploring how and in what ways digital can be defined and how it is oftentimes misunderstood. We will also be debating how digital skills need to percolate across entire museum organigrams, not just bespoke departments who are now taking the lead. But last but not least, we will be discussing how digital can contribute to future-proof museums, perhaps also rethinking professions to create the need for entirely new ones. And that's the series of 4 meetups we shall be having over the next month. In this particular session, which is the introductory session, we will explore the current museum landscape to understand what type of digital, online, and other similar developments are taking shape within the museum landscape. We shall also look at the potential that digital holds, still as yet understood as a marketing tool, as Kaisa was mentioning, particularly the online. And we'll be doing this in order to harness its full, to understand how we can harness its full potential. To make things easier and to facilitate the discussion even further, we have summarized and synthesized the scope and objective of this meetup into three questions. Our first question, one of 3 that we'll try to reply to is this: how is online content understood? Is it really still understood as marketing proper, or is the problem of definitions? That's the first question. The second question: is there a top-down digital literacy in place? Are the current circumstances enabling it, or are we still far off the mark? Where do we really stand at this point in time? The third question: where are the knowledge gaps within the current museum landscape that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed in unprecedented ways? Those are the 3 questions that we have set ourselves to answer or to debate today in this meetup. I'd now like to pass on to introduce Kaisa Hartig, a dear friend. Can I say so, Kaisa? Kaisa has an MA in visual anthropology, and she is head of museum experience and collections at the regional Västernorrlands Museum in Sweden. She has a background in digital development in the museum sector for 16 days, working in other museums. She is currently wrapping up a 3-year international research project, and I can tell you that she's very active also on Medium, writing and sharing some very insightful and inspiring thoughts and ideas. Kaisa, I pass the mic to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Sandra, for those kind words. Yes, so I'll start to share the screen, and it's interesting, yes, that it all started with with a tweet. Um, let's see. Now, do you see a full screen presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thanks. Yes. Eh, since I moved into um, the kind of regular museum business from being 8 years at a digital department, um, I've been very happy, as I said, to be able to bring in the digital skills that I have, but also I'm slightly frustrated at times how to even though I'm in a position now to kind of merge digital with the ordinary business of a museum, there are of course challenges that I discover new ones every day. So that's why it's always really lovely to have the online community on Twitter with museum people all over the world that are ready to respond and to bring up a discussion. So this is very, very helpful and useful also for me to be able to discuss these issues with you here today. So the we decided on the title Beyond Digital for this series of talks, which is kind of uh, a way to say that the issues and challenges are digital, but also that they, of course, go beyond. There are much more issues to bring up and to discuss. Uh, so um, my short presentation here today that Lauren is going to respond to is bringing up three areas or three challenges. First of all, that society is changing and digital is here, and that there is a substantial impact on museum organizations. And these three in themselves, I mean, you're not surprised at all about this. It's kind of very obvious, but it's a starting point to dive into the challenges and issues. So what do we actually mean by society is changing and in a way that is impacting museums? And I think Diane is, of course, someone who is always bringing up these external issues that affect museums, which is fantastic. Among other things, climate change, like global warming, and then we have pandemics. There is populism and racism and anti-democratic movements, etc., that museums are facing and need to address in their work. And of course, Western society is becoming much more diverse, and many. I'm speaking from a Swedish point of view and perhaps European, but of course, we have been for the last century addressing kind of a homogenic um, audience that is now much more diverse and have much more different needs and expectations. And of course, there are other new expectations on museums from audiences that museums should be more experience oriented, that the information should be available on demand, that content should be um, personalized, and that we should be more event driven. We should be adapted to multi screens and multi-dimensional in some ways and multi-touch points. We should be available and accessible in many more ways than that we are today. And of course, we should also be participatory. And my standpoint today is, of course, from my experience in the museum sector, but also from my 3 years at a regional a museum in Sweden. And I think we are about 40 people at our museum, so we're fairly small. Um, so what we have been doing to address these issues, some examples, is that we need to always bring in the digital mindset and try to develop this. Um, we are training staff, and also, like many museums, especially during the pandemic, staff have been kind of facing the fact that they need to start live streaming without perhaps prior training, etc. So at the same time we are trying to bring in training opportunities, we need to start working as well. We have brought in also a digital first perspective, trying to always, when we want to uh, disseminate or present things, that we anticipate that the audience will come in touch with us first online. And then we have been looking at increasing online offerings. And again, especially during the pandemic, but this has been in our planning even before the pandemic. But of course, we have been increasing efforts. And especially in programming, we have been trying to find new formats to present programming online. Overcoming silos is something that, from my experience in the museum sector, is really, really important. And you all know this. I'm kind of talking to an audience that you already are aware of this, but it's in reality, and that's why we are here also. In reality, it's much more difficult than we think. But by establishing teams delivering museum experiences on site, online, and in the region, we are rethinking production processes so that we can fit into prepare content for all these different channels and formats, etc., but also that we can come together and solve problems regardless of what job we have. So programming is working together with producers and web staff, etc., which is really, really rewarding. And of course, becoming more responsive. And this is also something that I know we need to do this, but we also need in reality to make space and time for unplanned events and prototyping, etc. And because, and this will come back to, museums are during heavy pressure to deliver and to bring in new audiences, etc., it's really difficult to make time and space in reality. So again, I'm repeating the questions that you mentioned before, Sandro. How do we actually go from A to B or C? How do we actually, we know what we should do, but how do we actually get there? And a big issue here is, of course, how do we define digital? And there is a kind of a lack of consensus around online content, for example. If you discuss this, there's always marketing that is brought into the discussion. And when we measure success, is done from a marketing point of view. And another issue that I've been very interested in to discuss is their concept as online exhibition. And I know the museum sector is not agreeing on this. Some people are using it and some are directly opposing it. And of course, what can the visitor expect when they visit the museum online? And then number two, digital is here. Again, this is nothing new. We are all aware of this. It's been here for decades, but we do need apparently and obviously to repeat what does this mean. Yes, that the audience is mobile and connected. We need to reach through the white noise online. We need to reach the distracted audience. And how can we as a museum catch the attention of the audience and start to interact with the audiences online? We need to produce content for hybrid platforms and plan for hybrid platforms, and that audiences are actually moving between platforms. They might come across the museum through their mobile phone, but then we need to bring their experience onto another platform. And again, like this audience here today, the participants, it is a global world. And for us as a regional museum, we really need to consider what does this mean. We have our stakeholders are really putting pressure on us that we need to deliver to the region, but of course we are available also to a global audience. And audiences expect active experiences. They want interactivity. They want to have a say and personalize their experience, also online, of course. And it's polyvocal, the online experience. Digital has meant that more voices can be heard, and how do we address this and take advantage of this as a museum? And some examples again from our museum. We have actually decided to produce 2 years ago a digital strategy, and I'm not ready to kind of let it go yet. I know that there are discussions in the sector, should we have, do we need a digital strategy or not? But for me, it has been a good tool to actually remind both the management and the museum that this is important and that we need to adapt our business alongside the digital development in society. Um, we, again, like I mentioned before, we have introduced training for World Online, making sure that the staff is more confident in producing video, for example, or live stream. But also one important thing is that we started already, again, before the pandemic, to merge the, the staff online into teams and using online cloud platforms, which was very handy once the pandemic started. Then we actually shifted all our meetings online. So that has become a natural part of not just our museum, of course, but of many museums. And how do we bring that forward? Another thing that we are using as a standpoint or starting point is the ecosystem, the public ecosystem, that the museum is not just the building, of course, but a multitude of channels and touch points, which requires a multitude also of formats and ways to interact with the museum. And we are not there yet. We are aware that we need to do this, but we need to shift the way we work so that we actually can become successful in all the channels and create a, an experience that is stretching across the ecosystem. And that, of course, requires us to weave together a story and experience to build this from the start with all the different kinds of content and formats. As I mentioned before, we are experimenting with programming. We have, for example, started a book club. We have talks with guests. We have, I mean, again, live streaming. It seems like a simple thing, but for us, it's been a new way to actually distribute talks, etc. And we need to start looking at hybrid experiences where again, the visitor might start in a digital channel and then move on to a physical visit, etc., or the other way around. So back to the questions again. When we planned this series of talks, we discussed the need for top-down digital literacy. And yes, I can confidently say that not just because of me, but our management is actually very aware of how we need to change our way to work. And I would like to add here then that skills need to go beyond digital. How, for example, do we train staff for participation on site and online? And in reality also, how do we make different priorities because this takes time, of course, to spend more time interacting with audiences and creating new kinds of experiences. So the last part, they kind of merge into one another, all these three parts, but the impact on museum organizations, and this is also something that is worth repeating, even though many museums staff would say that, yes, we know that museums have changed and they need to change. Actually putting down the words and discussing them internally is very useful. That we are today perhaps traditional didactic and passive, we are delivering passive displays. We have siloed departments that find, at least in larger organizations, I think it's even more difficult to work across departments. And largely static. We have few events, perhaps, lack of participation, lack of personalized experiences, allowing little contact with staff. And we produce single efforts in digital, the area of digital, and I think that's also the case during the pandemic, that many museums have increased efforts, but they are single and not connected into a bigger experiences. And still we are producing experiences that emerge from the museum's own goals rather than the visitors' goals. And then again, museums of tomorrow, we need to be collaborative, we need to be digitally skilled, extended across multi-channels and multi-formats. We need to have much more editorial capacity. We need to be able storytellers, democratic, of course, team-driven, activist, agile, responsive, inclusive, participatory, personalized, and immersive. And I wish I could say yes to all those, but we are struggling our way to get there. So some examples from our museum. In storytelling and content creation, we have been trying to develop a strategic approach, adapting to new channels of formats, starting about 6 months ago. So now we are trying to actually implement these thoughts and work practices to see if it works. So we have some time ahead of us to evaluate and see if we have succeeded. We are working, as I mentioned before, from the standpoint that we need to produce content for multi-channel and multi-directional storytelling, and learning how to produce content for multiple channels, but also to connect the dots so that if the visitor steps into our universe somewhere through a media guide or whatever, then that the visitor also can discover the whole world that it will open up, ideally. And again, overcoming silos and supporting a core team. We have actually in all our efforts now been bringing exhibitions, programming, education and collections into one department. We also need to evaluate this. Is it working well? But for now, I see it as an advantage that we can actually work across different areas of competences in the museum. And one advantage, of course, is that we are a small museum. Other areas like film production, we need to develop skills across the organization. And then something that I'm very happy about, we have been working, rebranding the museum. We're presenting a new brand profile shortly. And there we really were pushing for bringing in the participatory, inclusive, innovative, and always relevant perspective into that. This is us, this is the brand. And that makes it much more easy for us to argue for activities in the museum, that if we want to deliver this brand, we need to actually act on these lovely words like inclusiveness, etc., being innovative. So one last question here before I let you step in, Lauren. So where are the knowledge gaps? Within digital, yes, there are within a museum staff that are very digitally skilled, and I think even a more bigger part of the organization that are slightly less skilled. But then we also need to look at many other skills. And Sandra, you mentioned this, we will come back to this in a further sessions down the road. What will the future workforce look like? We need to be able to collaborate externally, extend across multi-channels and platforms and formats. We need to have very strong editorial capacity, we need to be able transmedia storytellers, team-driven, activist, and again, as I'm repeating from before, agile, responsive, inclusive, and work with participatory efforts, but for real, like really inclusive. So yes, that's the kind of, that's where I leave you, Lauren, to start. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I mean, those are meaty questions that we have to unpack, right? And we don't have the hours and hours, days, weeks to really do that. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now with my initial response. And thank you for setting it up so brilliantly, Kaisa.
And
First
Laura,
off, yes.
Can I just introduce you quickly?
Sure. I guess you
Because,
can.
So hi, Laura. Hi. Yeah, Laura is, and I'm curious to know what this is all about, is a digital dragon wrangler with 20 years experience, assisting organizations with their community and communication strategies. She's an independent researcher and consultant of Your Digital Tattoo, as well as One by One. We're very keen to learn more about One by One as our partner on this journey. And she's going to react to what Kaisa has just presented. Lauren.
Thank you. So in short, a digital dragon wrangler is the person that wants to help you and your organization heal from the inside out and the outside in, dealing with all of the digital stuff that nobody really wants to pay much attention to, like change management and governance and all of the fun things that don't necessarily have the nice, sexy flash that digital immersive experiences might offer. So I'm going to be walking through some of those challenges that I face in both my independent practice and as my role as a researcher with the 1x1 project. And, as was stated in the introduction, I spent 18 of my 20-year career working with highly regulated organizations, thinking about digital engagement through community building, through by thinking about how to act small, thinking big and acting small, and thinking about digital transformation one step at a time, and to achieve digital maturity that is right and contextual for the organization that I'm serving or within. So 1x1, putting on my researcher hat, 1x1 is a multi-partner international initiative bringing together cultural organizations, policymakers, academics, professional bodies, support agencies, and communities of practice to build digitally competent museums. And we have been actively researching digital skills, digital development, digital transformation for over 3 years. I've been with the project since phase 1, and we have now just kicked off our 3rd research project as of February 1st of this year. So I'm going to just dive right in and start responding to those 3 questions that were posed to us. Now, this is one that I get on a daily basis. How do we define digital? Because we crave, as much as we know that there is complexity and nuance to this conversation, our human nature craves a simple, nice, contained response, right? We want to just be able to just write down that definition and hand that to our leadership, hand that to our colleagues. See, it's not as difficult as you think. Yet, what digital means to one person, team, organization is different to another individual, team, and organization. When we start to unpack what is digital, it's the way in which we understand digital. Its use as a delivery mechanism, a means for engagement, a means for interaction, right? And depending upon where you sit in the organization, you're going to have a different level of understanding. You may even have a different level of use of digital. Your sphere of digital may be limited to the digital that you use to interact with your colleagues within your organization. It could be that you are delivering or designing and delivering interactive, immersive experiences for the communities that you serve, physically and, maybe primary digital, a digital first experience. That use is going to differ from individual to individual, team to team, and organization to organization, including the means in which we create those digital products, experiences, and thinking about, what is the purpose for that digital product or experience? How are we managing or influencing the delivery mechanism, the intention or interaction, and engagement? When we start to unpack digital even more, what we realize is, once again, there's no simple answer. It really depends on your conditions and the context with where you are situated. And we have to also think that, digital is much more than a set of tools or systems. It exists and connects the ecosystem in which we live and breathe every single day. And when we start to think about how digital can serve us, can serve our organizations, we need to think fit for purpose first. It's really nice to see all the different case studies, use studies that are out there. We can get inspired by them, but we cannot have the false expectation that we can just lift and shift that digital experience, that digital project, that digital product into our own organizations.
without truly understanding and going back to how do we understand, use, create, and manage. Because what might work for another institution may not work for us. What might resonate really well for one community may not sit, or be as responsive for the communities in which we serve. So when we start to think about what does it mean to be contextual, holistic, and purposeful, we have to think about our perspectives, the lens in which we are thinking and experiencing digital. And what I mean by that is when we talk about change management and really truly understanding how digital evolves or manifests within our teams and organizations. I love the book Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott, and she talks about the beach ball. And since it's, we're starting to get some type of sun, I hope everybody remembers what a beach ball is, and we're soon hopefully going to be playing with those as the spring and summer months continue. But she notes that think about your organization and all of the people within your organization as sitting on a beach ball. You're each on these different colored strips, right? So finance might be on the green strip, and marketing might be on the blue strip. Exhibitions might be on the red strip, right? Everybody is on a different strip of that beach ball. And when they look around, digital to them is all blue or all green or all red. And they can't see necessarily the full beach ball, the full perspective, the full understanding of how digital manifests or is understood across the organization. So we have to think critically and manage and influence how digital competencies, capabilities, and literacy is best understood from the top down and the ground up. So we need to put more effort into ensuring that our, senior leaders know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. Do they need to know all of the technical details? Absolutely not. But they need to know how it is aligned to the strategic goals and objectives, how those metrics and community response and engagement, how it fuels and amplifies, not competes, with our physical experience. We need to make sure that we take the entire staff on the journey of digital maturity, digital transformation, so that no one is left behind. Once again, everybody will have a different understanding, use, creation, and management perspective, but we're leaving nobody behind. Everybody understands why we are creating that thing, why we are having that product or experience. Once again, making sure that leadership not just understands how it's aligned to our strategic goals and objectives, but the entire organization understands. And that means we need to have a culture that shares information. As was, stated, in the challenge, we do have a problem with silos. And the best way to combat, inertia or really influence a better understanding of what digital is, it means that we have to start showcasing the why and how of what we do. It can't just fall on the burden of one or two people or a quote unquote digital team, because everybody in every single role has some type of digital responsibility, whether it's purely internal, a mixture of internal and external, or external only. And this starts with having a really clear vision. I do advocate that if you haven't had a digital strategy, to create a digital strategy. I know that there is, that will probably spark a hot debate about do we have a digital strategy? Do we not? Do we use digital? Do we not? I think by being very clear about what you want to achieve and how, once again, it aligns to your strategic goals and objectives, how are you actioning those strategic goals and objectives through digital means, making it very clear in black and white how it's going to be done ensures that your leadership, staff, and culture are all on the same page. And that means leading digital transformation is completely unique to your organization. It means that there are multiple pathways to digital maturity. There's not one single pathway. You don't have to do it exactly like another organization did it. You have to first understand, how are you going to initiate these digital products and projects? And you don't have to necessarily, go for the big and the shiny. You can start with what you have. You can look at your systems and your tools and really understand what is in your digital ecosystem that you can work with. Where are those gaps? Where are those opportunities where you can get more efficient and effective with your processes or learn more from your community before you add additional digital tools and systems, platforms into your digital ecosystem? And that means we have to get really clever with experimentation. We have such long timelines with our exhibitions and just the general scope of work within the museum. We need to get better about thinking about how do we create different experiences? How do we influence different types of engagement in a more iterative way? And we can start these experiments within our own organization. We don't have to necessarily take complete risk by doing everything externally. So what does this mean? This means that you need to define digital within your team, within your organization. You have to establish a common language. You can use tools like user experience mapping, where you're looking at the entire audience and visitor journey or experience, and you're looking at those steps and stages that they're taking. Are you all in agreement about what those are? By the way, have you brought in that visitor or audience member to help, question or challenge those assumptions that you're making? And then once you've defined and understood those steps and stages, do you know exactly what tools, systems, platforms, and processes are enabling that experience back of house? Are you clear on who's responsible for what? Who is accountable for these types of experiences? Because guess what? Marketing and communication doesn't necessarily own digital, because when we look at the experience from end to end, there are so many players that are responsible at different stages of the experience for ensuring that step or stage from the visitor, audience, community perspective is delivered. So making sure you're using these dynamic resources that you can anchor all of your actions and decision-making from. And this means we have to start to get better at documenting why we've selected, these various systems, platforms, and tools, how we are going to be using them. I see so often, somebody brings something in and, nobody else really understands all of the bells and whistles. That person moves on and our digital ecosystem begins to sprawl, and we're spending a lot of money and not knowing exactly what our return is or how we are using those particular systems, platforms, and tools. And it's not just limited to the systems, platforms, and tools. It's being very clear with one another within our own organization, how we are using digital, why we are using digital, documenting those processes. I've seen in organizations that have taken on live streaming as a wonderful means in which to connect with their communities during the pandemic while their doors are closed. And they have been documenting, well, this is how I do the editing process, so that it's not just limited to public program, but now the education team can learn from that knowledge that was gained by that particular team and start to create their own digital products and experiences. So that information is shared across the organization. It transforms into knowledge and then ultimately insights. And once again, it's all about figuring out what is the right pathway for your team or organization. Your digital ecosystem is something that you should probably spend some time in mapping. Why do you have these things in place? And not just within your own organization, but think about the digital ecosystem that exists in related or similar organizations or within the communities that you serve. The second question: how do we train staff for participation on site and online? Well, just as digital has a lot of different layers that we have to kind of, peel away to better understand what it means for us in our various contexts or conditions, digital skills is not something that is very well defined either. And this was the this was the impetus for the 1x1 project. In the very first phase, we really wanted to better understand how did museums across the globe think and evaluate and define digital skills. And what we found is there was no simple answer, and no one really had it documented for organizational memory. We found that digital skills have 3 elements: competencies, capabilities, and literacies. So competencies, and this is usually where we think, where we start and stop and think about digital skills, is we think about, do we have the expertise to handle database management, metadata, the really technical aspects. So think about competencies as using a hammer and a nail, right? You know how to use the hammer, you know how to, nail it into a piece of, or hammer it into a piece of wood. It's very action oriented. But just knowing how to,
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, that's Siri for you. Sorry about that. And then as we start to think about, how are those competencies being used across our organization, it turns or morphs into a capability, meaning we not only know how to, use the hammer and the nail, but now we know how to make a bench. We know how to make a table. We know how to make a chair, right? We know exactly what we want to achieve with the various tools, platforms, and systems that we have within our digital ecosystem. And ultimately, we have to start to build our digital skills across the entire organization, from the top down and from the bottom up, to better understand digital literacy, meaning, do we need to build a bench or do we need to build a table? What is right for our organization? Making sure we have fit for purpose digital tools, platforms, and systems and experiences. So what does this mean? This means we need to learn to work with what we have. How do we collaborate in place? I hear all the time, well, if only I had X, like fill in the blank, right? We would be digitally mature. We would be able to do everything. No, start with what you have. Learn how to wield that the best you can. Know exactly where your gaps and opportunities are so that you can select fit for purpose tools, fit for purpose platforms and systems, and engagement strategies. Share what you are doing. Start to build a practice of working out loud, not only documenting what you are doing, but as we have seen through a digital first perspective over the last year, is we have had to learn to use Slack, Microsoft Teams, email, and several other different channels to coordinate and collaborate with our colleagues. So how are we doing that in a way that we are showcasing what we are doing, the decisions that we are making? Not everybody has to feed into every single project, but if they have an awareness, it improves their digital understanding and ultimately their digital literacy. Also, start experimenting with some literacy exchanges. Pair somebody who has great expertise or experience with a specific digital skill, whether it's a competency, capability, or literacy, and you want to pair them with a senior manager, senior leader within your organization, or somebody who is just curious to learn more about why it is you are doing what you are doing. And ultimately, where are the knowledge gaps? And that is the question that is taking our time and energy in this third project within 1x1. What we saw or noticed, observed when we were embedded in 6 different UK museums at the end of Project 1 is that there were some key ingredients to make any type of digital transformation or digital maturity effort a success. And we called that the CALM approach, meaning, how do we become more collaborative from the inside out? How do we anticipate the trends and patterns that we need to inform our decisions, inform our digital literacies? How do we let go of command and control leadership so that more areas of the organization and people at all levels are able to engage in digital practices and community engagement? And how do we be mindful of what we are choosing and why we are choosing it? what we are doing from an engagement perspective. What are those rhythms of communication and collaboration, both inside and outside of the organization, that we need to be aware of? Now, when we entered Project 2, that was February of last year. We were 2 weeks into the project of a very international initiative, and we had all of these wonderful plans of being able to be embedded in other museums across the Atlantic, and that obviously didn't happen. So we needed to learn how to put this calm approach into play within our own research team, within our own research partners. And as we worked with them, we realized that we had to have other elements in order to make that calm approach a success. We needed to teach and model how to communicate from the inside out and the outside in. We needed to learn how to adapt to a highly changing environment. What does that mean? How do we accept failure and build a resilient spirit? Resilience is one of those words that I've seen thrown around for the last year, but do we actually know what it means? What do we do to rise from that failure? How do we embrace failure? How do we think about how do we make ourselves, our organizations, our teams, the individuals making up our organizations, how do we make them more resilient, tougher, stronger? And ultimately, we have to think human first. And it's not just the communities that we serve, but we need to think about our employee engagement within our own organizations and thinking about how digital is fostered. Because if we can't get it right in our own organizations, how do we expect to create these sticky, engaging, interactive, and participatory experiences with the communities that we serve? So we need to start to build those empathetic skills. What we found throughout projects 1 and 2 is that to achieve digital maturity, it's not enough to just think about digital skills and improving those digital skills. We must figure out, what is the right blend of business intelligence skills with emotional skills that when combined with digital skills, we can achieve success, we can achieve transformation, we can achieve our own version of maturity. So over the course of the next 16 months, the 1 by 1 initiative will have 3 different research tracks that are looking at, how do we think more empathetically and grow our digital literacy. And one of those tracks, my track, is looking at building what we're calling a periodic table of skills, where we are looking at identifying those business intelligence skills, the emotional skills, and the digital skills, and then working with different organizations and you to really think through what are those formulas in which we need to pair or combine, fuse these elements together. How do we start to use the periodic table of skills to ensure that we're hiring the right people, to build better performance and development plans, and ultimately take stock of what digital literacy and understanding means across the entire organization? I think it's crucial that we come back to the point in which I started from, is that there are no easy answers. We have to work and embrace complexity by understanding that there are multiple pathways, multiple perspectives, multiple truths. We don't have to be wedded to one answer, one solution, one voice. We can start to get more creative and build redundant communication and community engagement pathways that will help us, better, create better, sticky, engaging relationships, both inside and outside of our organization. You're not alone in this journey. The challenges that have been discussed over the last hour, those are challenges that I think all of us can relate to some degree. And I want you to think critically about the next time you see some flashy case study or use study, and know that just because large national organization has digitized their collection or taken some open access initiative, it doesn't necessarily mean they are a digitally mature organization, right? They may have aspects or pockets of digital maturity, but digital maturity means so much more, as I just showed you. There are so many layers. I've seen small, medium-sized organizations who could run circles around large or national museums from a digital maturity perspective, because they are ensuring they're creating those sticky relationships, not transactional digital experiences, but interactions from the inside out and outside in. So we would like to welcome you to the Digital Commons. This is where the one-by-one research is happening. It does not compete with the We Are Museums community, although it is on a Mighty Networks platform as well. And we have just kicked off our research. And so you will find we also have a monthly book club that we discuss and really start to surface those business intelligence and emotional skills and how we use them in digital settings. And we will, beginning this month, at the end of this month, start hosting monthly workshops to build out the periodic table of skills and getting really specific with what are those digital capabilities that we need to start embracing, so that those elements, those skills are embedded in all roles, in all levels across our organization. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and we have, we're now going to open it up, I think, for questions and comments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Kaisa, as well. I mean, lots of things to take in. Wow. I have my questions, but I'm very happy to open the floor for everybody to react. Any aha moments, any takeaways, any reactions, please. Whoever wants to come forward first.
Marta actually posted on the chat that she feels very alone in this journey. Maybe you want to express a little bit more on that.
Yeah, because I'm not working at the moment, so I don't have any organization that they can, train me. I'm working as a volunteer for 2 organizations, but when you start to work as a volunteer, because you finish your studies as digital strategists, and then you can be a manager from one day to another. You need to learn from someone more experienced than you. But people want managers. You find a lot of plenty of offers to work as managers, and then you find something to work as a trainee, but for young people. If you have skill after working years in the sector, and then you want to focus on digital in museums, but you are more, you have 53 years like me. This is only for young people. I beg your pardon? Why? Like when I have 25, when I was 25, this doesn't exist. So that's the time I need to train, I need to be trained. No, you are older than 35, it's finished. Or this is, you have this opportunity, but this is England. Are you working in an English museum? No, sorry, it's only for people working in English museums. Are you doing this? It's like cutting you everything. There is this opportunity, you want to apply? No, because you are not in the country, because you are not here, because you are not working, Sometimes you find things, but nothing is appropriate for you. You are not, finding, you don't feel in the ideas they have in mind. I don't know, it's difficult, Ideally, there are plenty of opportunities. Digital is more important than ever in the sector. And for example, in Spain, in the organization I'm running the social media as a volunteer in Remet, there are a lot of people working in museums with my age, for example, or 40s.
Marta.
And then they can't do anything because they don't have any training.
Marta?
Yeah.
Can I react to what you've been
yeah, of course.
Speaking about? Yes. I think it's a question of digital mindset here. Probably we tend to associate digital with a certain category or with a certain profile as well. But yeah. I mean, when I thought of digital mindset, and I was remembering some good conversations I was having with Elizabeth a few weeks ago or months ago as to the challenges for someone working from within the museum ecology or the museum industry, working with a museum from the outside and the challenges there. Elizabeth, I'm sure you have to say a few things about this challenge of yours.
Well, I don't know. There are many challenges. First, the challenge is that 95% of museums do not have any team which understands anything about digital. Most of them have the feeling that being digital is just to have their website or their Facebook page, which is, we all know that it's much more. So that has been also a problem. And then when you look at how many people are working in this little section, you find 1-2 people. You know, you have to go to big museums like the Met or the Tate to find a few more people. Or Met, I think there are over 70 people, you know, and at the Louvre, I think there are 2. So at the end of the day, so it's incredible also in terms is that you don't even know to who you should be talking to. And then the museums, because they all have this this feeling that the only experience is to come to the museums, where we all agree. Everybody agrees that the only experience, the true experience, is to go to the museum. But it's like going to a concert hall. The true experience for music is the concert hall, and nobody discussed that. But we can't go to the concert every day. Like we can't go to every museums we would like to have. And anyhow, if we go to a museum or a concert, we decide to go towards the concert and the museum. It's not the concert and the museum coming to you, except that for the music industry, they invented radio and all the music industry business around it, which brings you, you know, this experience, and it trains our ears. And this is why I think it's incredible to see that even which what was talking with just the latest presentation now is, we're talking about training people, but what, to talk, to only share opinions or experiences, which of course we need. I'm not discussing that, but where are the collections? We were talking about environmental issues. We know that now, you know, that the big blockbuster exhibitions might disappear also, because now museums wants to also to have a green strategy and don't spend too much money on things. But it's really difficult, and I'm going to, I don't want to take all the floor, because as you know me, Sandro, I can talk for ages, but because it's really a topic which is really close to my heart. But I want to share with you, it's now, I'm just thinking about it now. I got yesterday, I was trying to connect with somebody who is in the museum organization. Not really a museum, he's working for kind of outside of community of museums. And I was contacting him because I thought there was maybe something we could do together in terms of filming in heritage, because I'm always looking for things for heritage, because I think we don't talk about enough heritage. And he wrote me this. I'm not going to, because most of you know him, so I'm not going to, and I'm going to be careful that you don't guess who he is. He's been saying, my interest is primarily in reducing the environmental impact of IT and online services. I'm not making films, I just write software and do research. I think movies can be an excellent way to convince people to take action on climate change, for example, because I'm having a project on that subject. But I also know that streaming video has a relatively large environmental impact. And I feel people should be aware of that. So I'm having an IT guy telling me to be aware about the digital impact, which I agree. I'm not saying I'm an angel in that sphere. I know that when Diane in one of her talks were showing this website about the environmental impact we have with digital, I was horrified by my CO2 footprint. But am I worse with my CO2 footprint, or should we do the exhibition with all the crates and the flights and you know, and all the other type of footprints? or we don't do anything anymore. You know, we have to find a way. So yeah, and I want digital to share the collections. This is my biggest dream, is that we really understand that, and that museums share their knowledge and collection, and with the beauty of the works they have in their cellar, so to say. And so yeah, so in terms of challenge, there are many more.
Yeah, just to provoke the discussion further, I've shared an article published by The Guardian yesterday, which is talking about the first exhibition produced by the National Gallery for a mobile. And Kaisa was mentioning that we still don't have consensus as to what an online exhibition is. I don't know if anybody would like to react to this, or perhaps Kaisa, you have clearer thoughts? Or yeah, Marta.
I have been attending a course, and my teacher told me that Google was like giving more importance to websites that were appropriate for mobiles. So this idea of mobile first, I think this is the idea that National Gallery have in mind, I suppose, to create this new new product, you know, this new exhibition, especially for mobiles. You know, if your experience can be good in a mobile, maybe your Google can put you in a better position when people is looking for digital museums or digital experiences in museums, I suppose.
My question mark then would be, because I mean, more often than not, what is online is marketing. I mean, and this is trying to shift the goalposts in a positive way, in a way. So, I mean, are we at a juncture? Are we literally, are we seriously considering that digital and online is something else now? Are we still talking of something which is misunderstood, or is it just the subjective opinion of the National Gallery, as Lauren was mentioning, and perhaps others might not consider that as valid? I don't know. I mean, I'm very curious about this. Lauren, Kaisa, I mean,
it's such a huge topic, and it's difficult to try to frame, and I hope we can bring it back to further discussions.
yes,
also, like the
absolutely.
definition, and I just saw this article now. I'll really look into it. Very interesting. But I'd like to go back to what, Marta, you started talking about, that applying for jobs from the angle of being like digitally skilled is very, very difficult today. Still, though, and it's interesting, I had a talk to anthropology students at my old university, Stockholm University, yesterday. I usually come back once a year to encourage students together with other alumni, and it's kind of a similar situation for anthropologists in Sweden, because it's not really recognized in the job market as digital skills are in the museum sector. I noticed that another regional museum recently hired a digital curator, but it's very, very rare. And like you say, across the entire museum, and like you were saying, Lauren, it's really the level of skills are really varying a lot, and that could really put a hold on the development. So that's kind of really a core issue.
And we need to think about, there are a couple of different angles, I think, as well, that we need to consider. You know, these positions are very precarious to begin with, right? And we are not paying what these skills are worth. And we need to reckon with that as a sector from country to country, you know, and that's a massive effort that needs to be addressed in a very candid way. Another thing that I just wanted to, you know, to bring up about the age and the skills issue, and this is something that I saw all the time when I was in the private sector. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I would not, just because she knows how to drive, I would not hand the keys of my car over to her, right? You would not hand the keys of your digital kingdom to somebody that is brand new. They may know how to use TikTok. They may not, you know how to use all of these different
tools and platforms and systems, but they don't necessarily have the seasoning, the expertise, the literacy of how to use those tools for the types of engagement around our collections, around the different messages and vision that our organizations have. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't, there are different roles, responsibilities, levels, and ages, but we have to train and have some type of career path and development path so that every single age, every single role in our organization is properly compensated and has the development that is the most appropriate for their end goal, right? For their career development, for the organization's vision and path. So I think that's something we have to reckon with.
Yeah, that's the problem. Start this path. Then you have some skills, you have some, you feel you are able to do it, but then you need some help to start this path, and you can do maybe this part because I think it's very important when you are running social media in your organization, you are taking care of the reputation of this organization. So you can publish as if you were an individual. You have to answer people when they ask questions, thinking as organization, not as an individual, and you need to have a knowledge that maybe people suppose you have, but they are asking for skills as Google Analytics, digital strategy, content strategy, then social, audiovisual skills, graphic design skills, plenty of things. And then you must be an expert in all of these things, and this is impossible. Nobody is able to know everything. I think you need to work in a team, and maybe this person is more capable in this area, on this area, and then you work together, and then you prepare everything for social media, for the website, or for any digital project, and then it's very good because everybody has contributed with this area. They are expert in that. But working like that, you must have everything in life is impossible.
Yeah. Yes,
what I see that
please,
I see that it's really a problem with the system, with the museum system, with the museum ecosystem, which is actually not valuing yet the right skills and not actually giving enough space and resources to get the right teams. But who can actually have this voice? Who can actually lobby for a better understanding of digital skills and digital literacy and digital teams? It's been like, I don't know, more than a decade that I'm actually working in this field, studied with digital, studied with different kind of innovations. And Kaisa, you're doing exactly the same, and you have the same path, Elizabeth as well, Lauren. So we are here, actually, we've been witnessing these same conflict and the same struggles for the past years already. So how would you see this actually changing? Is it shall we lobby more? Is it a question of time? Is it a question of training? Do we need to actually go see a lot of universities so we can train and like, what's your ideas on that? Because I feel that we are stuck in front of a wall for years already. Milena?
Yes, well, yeah, thank you for everything raised until now. Well, while I'm listening, I think it's a matter of education and literacy, actually, at first. Because what I had as an experience, for example, when we, like my student project while I was MA student, was to create a virtual museum of Belgrade, of the capital of Serbia. And we wanted to create some actually research project comparing what do people consider heritage if they are not a heritage experts or involved anyhow in heritage. And we invited even students and everything. And what was the main problem after the problem of involving people to participate, which is another topic, was actually the problem of how to communicate the design of the platform, of the website itself. And it was for the first time that actually I found that I don't have the same vocabulary and the same jargon in explaining.
Okay, Milena.
I think she was about to talk about definition and vocabulary, yes, which is actually the topic of today. Kaisa, what's your feeling about what I said and what Milena referred to?
The fact that we have been struggling for decades already. No, but I'm trying to take notes here when you've been speaking, Lauren, as well, and it's been very, very useful. And I think it comes back to just spontaneously, like changing how I'm thinking about. I've been attending conferences for a decade, like Museums and the Web, Museum Next, and of course we are museums as well, and they are really, really good to connect people to advanced thoughts, etc. But they have been focusing a lot on products, etc. And so maybe really shifting, like you are now, Diana, the focus of we need to share experiences in the sector, the people that have been struggling for a decade or more in these issues, to like, where do we start? And I come back also to what do we want to achieve? And I saw like a comment in the chat here, why would the general public be more open to try cultural experience via digital means, etc.? And having more answers to that, not just like you said before, a fancy case study, but actually analyzing behind this, what does it mean to visit the museum online in multi-channels, etc. So yeah, many thoughts.
Yes, in fact, there are a series of questions. I don't think we'll have time to cover all of them, but I'll just go through them quickly. They've been posted by Citizen Services, someone who's traveling on a train, and the questions range from how can we motivate people to be more open to digital experiences, why as a museum to invest in generating a more complex and consistent digital ecosystem. And then you also picked up the last question, Kaisa. So I mean, any reactions to what Stazizin have just shared? I mean,
I can just say very quickly, you know, one of the part of getting people to come along the journey with you, right? It goes back to what is that common language, having a visualization of what you are trying to achieve. I really, really stress if you can bring in a critical friend, you know, talk to people, you know, within this community who have done user experience mapping, audience visitor journey mapping, you know, just pick one experience that you want to better understand, and go through that with a team of people that represents your organization. I think it will help you understand what digital is or isn't, where your gaps and opportunities are, where you can start to see your different perspectives and question your assumptions. And that also helps you from a skills perspective, because you can start to see, oh, wow, we need to know more about this so that we can achieve this, because we're trying to jump, you know, so quickly into the flash that we really need to think critically about why we are even going in that direction to begin with.
And I actually feel that we've been starting to list different purpose. So Kaisa, you actually listed why our world is changing, and then Elizabeth, you talked about the green, and then like all of us, we started to actually list the purpose, and that's something new, quite new as well. We were not actually acting through for the purpose before. We were just acting for different things, for different reasons, but now we are a purpose-driven society, and this is actually the filter that we are really using when we do anything or everything. And I think this is something that we should all discuss, like, what are your values? Why do you actually do what you do? And we know that in museums, we don't do that for money. wrong. So why are you really doing that? And I think, you know, having like really benevolent and open discussions on why, Joanne, you actually decided to join here this meetup, or why you decided to take on this new hat, and etc. That's I think that's a start. And Lauren, thank you for pointing it so right.
Yes, yes.
Really.
There's Milena who has just rejoined. Perhaps we can take one last comment from her since we lost her. Can you hear us,
yes.
Milena?
Yes,
Yes.
I was hearing you completely, and I just found out from your face that you did not actually hear me, and
Yes.
I don't know. I'm now here on my phone, so
Okay.
I'll start the video. But sorry if I'm a bit
okay.
moving a bit. Yeah, but I'm really sorry that I was lost. Yes, but the idea was that actually what I found out from my personal experience was that I didn't know how to communicate actually my ideas in the proper vocabulary, or actually we were really lacking the literacy or the education in between the two different actually environments, or the two different educational perspectives. And that's why I started, my point was that maybe the time will show that at the universities we will have more interdisciplinary courses and more willingness to somehow actually be educated about the digital environment as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we've run out of time. It's 5:30. It's been an hour and a half, one of those that you don't see how time flies. Lots of things to digest, to think about. This first meetup goes well. I'm very happy with what we managed to achieve jointly with One by One and with Västernorrlands Museum. Looking forward to our next meetup, the second from a series of 4. Thank you once again to all of you, wherever you are, and have a good evening or a good day, and hope to meet soon for our next meetup. Diane, I don't know if you would like to add something else?
All good. You can find the recording, I think, next week with a summary on the platform. And yeah, this is just the beginning of a ongoing discussion. And I think taking the time to discuss and to share, that's actually really what we talked about today. So thank you so much, Sandro, Lauren, Kaisa, and everyone else for joining.
Thank you very
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.